Hi, this is Paul Carlson, CPA with AE Velocity. In this video, we're looking at utilization rates within Ajera. So first, within Ajera, utilization is everywhere. So here we're looking at the timesheets dashboard, and here we have a nice chart of utilization for the year. We'll see some firms will have dashboards where utilization will be in part of their table. We go up to the management reports. We can see that there's an overall company utilization chart. There's also utilization on a lot of other reports. The one we look at most is the detailed employee utilization report. We will actually set up different versions or views of the utilization report. One we'll make is all the utilization information for each employee. And so that way employees can log in and they can see their own utilization details directly from Ajera. And that allows them to see the same numbers management's looking at for just performance appraisals. So within this example, I have the full company utilization report open. So let's take a look at this. So first thing when looking at the utilization report is draw a line right between this total and billable on the report. That what this does is these are summary numbers and this is detail numbers. So this billable column is just billable hours. Indirect hours is a total of all of the indirect time we see in these additional columns. And then we have a total. And then here we have the detail breakout. That just keep in mind that we're actually looking at two different views at the same time, because if you go all the way across, it looks like people have reported a lot more hours than they've actually put in. All right, and then within Ajera, all the good stuff is behind the blue plus. Let's look at a couple filters. So we can choose to run utilization calculations based on hours or based on dollar values within the system. Typically, we'll look at hour numbers, because if we run utilization based on amount, that anyone that gets a hold of a copy of the utilization report can use the detail to go ahead and calculate everyone's salaries and hourly rates. And typically firms aren't excited about that opportunity. We can print current period, year to date, or current and year to date. We're just going to stay current to keep this example simple. And then status to print, we're just going to look at active employees. So let's jump into the controversy that is utilization rate calculations. Keep in mind that Ajera is a pre-programmed piece of software that we buy the app. We're not going to go in and reprogram all the calculations, but let's just talk through how Ajera calculates some of these numbers and why they may or may not be the best idea. So first employee we're going to look at is Pat Hill, that she worked 8 hours billable and 32 hours indirect. Let's take a look for a total of 40 hours. So let's look at here. So we have the detail, 8 hours again billable. So I just column repeats. Was on vacation for 24 hours and used 8 hours of holiday. So one perspective on utilization is Pat was really only expected to turn in 8 hours of billable time. That holiday was 8 hours, vacation was 24 hours, that she was just out of the office and can't be expected to turn in billable hours during that time. So really, if she billed 8 hours of the 8 hours she was expected to be in the office that week, that her utilization should be 100%. Well, Ajera takes the calculation of, again, total billable hours divided by total hours within the office and gives us a utilization rate of 20%. So from the employee's perspective, yeah, this might not be they might not be their first choice. From the firm controller or firm owner perspective, I'm looking at utilization as a function to predict revenue for the current period. So with her utilization at 20%, this gives me an indication that revenue for Pat is not going to be as high as it should be. And so I can look at this and understand and say, okay, she was out of the office, but still revenue is not going to be as high as it could have been. So I actually prefer this system of utilization calculation. So So let's jump into the real murky one. So Mary is the star employee of the firm. She wants to be the next owner, and she wants a gigantic Christmas bonus. So last week she billed 48 hours, and she did 5 hours of proposals, and she's on salary. So she put in 53 hours, and her paycheck is for salary. You can argue that that's worth 40 hours. So some will argue that her utilization rate is the 48 hours billable divided by the 40 hours that's standard associated with a salaried employee. So her utilization rate should be 120%. But again, Ajera just does billable hours divided by total hours, and she put in that extra marketing time, which is fantastic. She's bringing in her own work for next month, but it actually counts against her and pushes her utilization rate down. So if your firm has lots of folks like Mary, what typically happens is you start watching the billable hour column a lot more than the utilization column. And again, you really got to kind of look at each one of these folks when you're reviewing utilization. And with that, we've done a quick introduction to Ajera utilization rates. If you need any accounting help with your A&E firm, please give us a shout at aevelocity.com. Thanks.